A very good evening, aspirants. I welcome you all to editorial analysis of Shankar IAS Academy. Today's date is 3rd of February 2025. Displayed here are the list of articles that we are going to discuss today. In this first topic, we'll be discussing about certain aspect that we have to focus beyond tax cuts. And in the second article, we'll be discussing about the domestic workers, what are all the issues faced by them and how it can be rectified. We'll be seeing both the topics from the mains perspective. So without any delay, let us get into the article discussion. Now look at this editorial article from Indian Express newspaper. This article talks about a directive given by the Supreme Court to the Union government. Recently, Supreme Court has directed the Union government to check for the possibility for enacting a separate law for domestic workers. So the article itself entirely talks about what are the challenges faced by them and how it can be rectified. Let us see them from the mains perspective in this news article discussion. Before that, I have a mains question for you. Let me read out the question. Discuss the challenges faced by domestic workers in India and the need for a separate law to ensure their protection and welfare. Suggest measures to address these challenges. So it is actually a 15-marker question for 250 words. You can write an answer and post it in the comment section so that we can review your answer as well as your peers can review it. So let's start with what are all the challenges faced by domestic workers. See, the first important challenge that has been highlighted by this article is the exclusion from labor laws. Actually, we can tell that they are actually included, but the definition is actually not clear. It has actually made the thing even more complex. So this led to a lot of impacts like lack of social security. We have specific schemes like e-Shram. In this e-Shram portal, specifically they are providing insurance or the social security for the unorganized sector. However, since there is issues like identification issues and all, they could not get access to health insurance, maternity leave or even pensions. And there are certain issues like there is no proper guaranteed scheme, wage, and they are dependent on employer discretion when it comes to wages. So these are very important challenges that has been highlighted in the article. Thirdly, there is migrant vulnerability. See, so in certain states there are domestic workers that they are from other states. So there is internal migration from Jharkhand, Odisha and Chhattisgarh in a lot of states, and they live a very poor living condition. There is a certain hurdles like the language barrier, and there is a lot of exploitation happening in metropolitan cities like Delhi, Mumbai and Chennai and etc. So this is the third important challenge that we have to keep in mind. Now the fourth important challenge is the unregulated placement agencies. There are a lot of middlemen who actually exploit the work of the people who are not aware of the language, who have the language barrier, and who does not have proper awareness of what work they must be exploited for. So this is the fourth important thing. And they are also enforced, or they are also subjected to a lot of harassment and abuse in the workplace. They are abused in terms of verbal as well as sexual abuse, and even the physical abuse. So a very good example for this is 2017 Noida Zohra Bibi case. Moving on, there is also gender bias. There is a taboo, or there is actually a term like women's work, which is also degrading or devaluating the entire domestic workers role, as well as there is informality of work arrangement. There is no formal legal framework that ensures or that mandates the owners to be made. So these are all certain challenges that we have to remember. Moving on, we shall quickly go through the need for a separate law. See, we need a separate law in order to formalize their work. So what happens when formalization happens? There will be a clear contract, there will be a clear wage and working hours. So the exploitation of these workers and even the agencies or the middlemen, they will be cut off. So there will be clear terms. Firstly, a very good example is South Africa's domestic workers protection law. They have a separate legal framework, so we can derive example from there itself. Secondly, this will bring in a lot of safeguard to the vulnerable workers, as I said. Thirdly, they will be recognized with dignity. So their domestic work itself will elevate to formal labor status. Fourthly, there will be comprehensive coverage. For example, a lot of unique challenges that has not been addressed under this Code on Wages 2019 will be addressed if there is a separate law. So these are all certain reasons why we require a separate law for the domestic workers. Moving on, we shall see about the measures that can be taken for the challenges that we saw earlier. See, the first is the legislative reform, which is like asking for a separate law. A very good example for this step is the Kerala's Domestic Workers Welfare Board Act. So under this particular act, what happens is any particular domestic worker, they will be registered in the first place. So if they are seeking for a job from a owner, they will be entering into a particular agreement. So in that agreement, everything will be mentioned, like the working hours and what if extra work is extracted, and what will be the minimum wage that will be paid, and what will be the leave provisions and all. So those kinds of contracts will help the workers who are being employed. Now moving on, second important measure is this universal social security. We can include them in ESI and EPF and even the Unorganized Workers Social Security Act. We have 2008 Act. We have them. We have to empower them by providing awareness about these particular schemes. So this will provide maternity benefits and even accident coverage as well as pensions. Apart from this, we have to conduct a lot of awareness campaigns, and we have to let know people about the government efforts that has been made. So there is two different things, one made by the central government and another made by the state governments. Every state government have their own specific benefits for the social workers as well as the domestic workers. So they have to collaborate, and they have to bring in a lot of awareness in this particular thing. A very good example for this is the Seva's legal literacy program. See, in this particular program, it is Seva is actually an NGO. They give a lot of awareness about the benefits and what they have to do when they are exploited. So these things can be done. Apart from this, we have to strengthen the institutions. For example, we can set up a grievance redressal mechanism at the central as well as the state level. A very good example for this we can quote is the Delhi State Domestic Workers Welfare Board. And we can bring a lot of skill development to the people. This can be done under Skill India Mission and NSDC. Moving on, apart from all these, we can bring in technological integration. This can be done by creating digital platforms for registration, contract as well as wage tracking. A very good example is Helper for You. And then we can encourage formation of unionization. So this can be done by promoting unions like a National Domestic Workers Movement, in short called as NDWM. Apart from this, we can ratify the ILO's Convention 189. So this will also align India's standard with global standard for domestic workers protection. So far we saw about what are all the challenges faced by the domestic workers. Then we saw why domestic workers require a separate law, and then we saw what are all the measures that can be taken to rectify these challenges. So with these learned points, now let us move on to the next news article discussion. Now look at this article from The Hindu newspaper. This article talks about the union budget that has been presented very recently. So the article highlights what are all the other aspects of the union budget that we have to focus on apart from this tax cuts. So let us revise them from the mains perspective. Before that, I have a question for you. Discuss the role of the manufacturing sector in India's economic growth. How have recent government initiatives such as Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat contributed to the sector's development? So it is a 250 word question for 15 marker. So you can write an answer and post it in the comment section so that we can review your answer. So let's start with how this union budget has been presented. See, this union budget has been presented in the economic backdrop with very high taxes, with a lot of unemployment and fiscal deficit issues. However, the budget actually focuses on agriculture, manufacturing, MSME, welfare as well as infrastructure, and our union budget has fixed a fiscal deficit target of 4.4% for financial year 2026. So what is this fiscal deficit? This is very important from the prelims as well as mains perspective. It is nothing but when we subtract the total revenue of the government and when we subtract it with the expenditure, so what will be the remaining excluding the borrowings, then we call it as the fiscal deficit. So we are targeting for a fiscal deficit of 4.4% of India's GDP in this current financial year 2026. And for this only a lot of arrangements like the tax cut has been made. So this will actually have a lot of impact. For example, it will boost consumption, and it will have a potential impact on the social as well as infrastructure spending. However, the long term impact will be is not a lot of very appreciable thing. So the impact in the longer run is not a very good attractive point when it comes to this particular tax cuts. So this is what the first important thing the article highlights. Now the second important thing that the article highlights is the manufacturing sector's contribution and how it has made its downfall in the recent times. So currently India is like manifesting, or we are working to become the global manufacturing hub, and the very important challenge that is hindering the particular vision is this electronics sector, which is currently underperforming, and there is MSME support gaps. Let us see them in detail in the next slide. There are certain issues that has been faced by this manufacturing sector for their underperformance. For example, they contribute nearly 17% of GDP, and for this lowest contribution also there are particular issues. For example, the MSME support has been declined. This has limited the credit access. There is high compliance which is put forward by the policymakers, as well as there is inadequate technology adoption. So first place, the technology is inadequate, and the second place, the available technology is not adequately used. So these are the first reasons. Secondly, even the economic survey, it has highlighted that the manufacturing sector, they are underperforming, especially when it comes to the PLI scheme. The PLI scheme has currently went down. This is as per the economic survey. Thirdly, a lot of value added focus, it has been lagging. For example, the pharmaceuticals and even the electronic sector, they are not contributing a lot. And the primary reason, apart from the decline in the MSME support, is this R&D investment. We are not investing a lot of money into our research and development. We have reduced it to 0.64% of our GDP. This is actually hindering the innovation in our country. So these are all certain important challenges faced by our manufacturing sector in our country. Now moving on, we shall see what can be done in order to boost this manufacturing sector. See, the first important thing we have to do is the PLI scheme, strengthening it. So we can bring in a lot of regulation. This can be done by putting a lot of grievance redressal, and we can ask for feedback mechanism as well. So through this, we can identify where is the core issue, and we can simplify the rules and regulations, and we can bring in a lot of ease of doing business. And we have to bring in a lot of long-term initiatives. So we can include a clause that will trigger a long-term development, and we have to address the inefficiencies. This can be done by the grievance redressal mechanism. Now, second important thing is we have to bring in a lot of MSME competitiveness. So this can be done by giving a lot of credit access. Then we can give subsidies for particular things for which the underperformance is actually happening, and we can bring in skill development for the workers. Now, the third important thing is we have to invest in infrastructure. We can invest in infrastructure like roads, ports, power, and manufacturing hubs. This can be done even through public-private partnership. Now, the fourth important thing that we can do is increase the R&D expenditure. We can actually increase the expenditure to 2% of GDP, and this can include the public-private partnership, as I said earlier. And the final thing is we have to boost exports. See, the ultimate thing is we have to export a lot. So if you are exporting a lot, the economy will actually develop without any boost from the government itself. So this can actually done by a lot of ways. One of the ways, the trade agreement. This can be done by the bilateral agreement between the countries, and we can bring in a lot of incentive for the exporters, and we can focus on emerging markets, and we can invest there and we can boost our exports. So even this PLI scheme, there is something called import export promotion and import substitution. So what does this mean is, this will invite a lot of FDIs into our country. These FDIs will be focusing a lot on exporting things. So they will come here, they will invest a lot in our country. We will be providing them cheap labor and we will be providing them with raw materials, and through that they will be manufacturing a lot and promoting the exports. So once that is happening in our country, for which the imports is very high, we can actually perform really good. So the ultimate thing is we have to do a lot of exports, and for that we have to concentrate a lot on manufacturing sector, and for that we have to reduce a lot of compliance issues, and we have to bring in we have to alter the long term impacts like this PLI schemes. So these are all very important facts that you have to remember from the article. So far we saw about a very short overview of this Union Budget 2025. Then we saw what is the particular thing that we have to focus apart from the tax cut, how we have to focus on them. So with this we came to the end of the news article discussion. If you like the video, hit like, do comment, and don't forget to subscribe to Shankar IAS Academy YouTube channel. Now thank you so much for listening.